The movie begins with a man named Humbert driving down a road, holding a hairpin with bloody hands and a gun in the passenger seat. He seems lost and talks about a person named Lo, whom he loved deeply. Humbert shares that when he was 14, he met Annabelle in France in the year 1921, and they were madly in love. Sadly, she passed away from typhus 4 months later. This broke him, and even as he grew up, he continued searching for her and the innocence of his childhood. In 1947, he took a teaching job at Beardsley College in New England, America. He goes to stay at the McCoos house, who is a friend of his late uncle. But upon reaching there, he found that it's burned down. Charlotte Hayes, a friend of the McCoos and a widow, kindly offers to accommodate him instead. Humbert meets Charlotte, who compliments his studies and flirts with him. Charlotte gives him a tour of the house, and during the tour, Humbert mentions he might have to go back to New York. Charlotte thinks he's not impressed with their setup and insists he sees the piazza. That's where he saw a young girl named Lo, soaking wet and reading a magazine beside the sprinklers. Humbert couldn't take his eyes off her. Lo notices Humbert watching her and smiles back at him. Humbert decided to stay there. Later that day, Lo visits Humbert in his room and tells him she's bored. She sits on his lap and asks him if he sees a pimple on her. He tells her she's perfect, and she smiles. Just then, Charlotte calls for him, and Lo quickly runs away. Charlotte catches Lolita trying to escape to her room, while Humbert tries to remove the gum she left in his notebook. Charlotte asks if Lo is keeping him up, but he denies it. The next day, Lo serves Humbert his breakfast by being very close to him. Charlotte decides to send Lolita to camp, but Lo doesn't want to go. She asks Humbert to convince Charlotte not to make her go, but unfortunately, he isn't able to convince her. Later, Lo is leaving, and Humbert looks at her leaving from the window. Lo saw him and ran into the house and went to his room. She kissed him passionately and left. Later, Charlotte confesses her love for Humbert through a letter and asks him to leave before she comes back. If he stays, it means he wants to be with her as much as she wants to be with him. Despite feeling repulsed by Charlotte, Humbert decides to stay and marry her because he doesn't want to be far from Lo. 2 weeks later, they got married. To avoid having any intimate relations with her, he gave her sleeping pills. One day, when he returns home, he finds Charlotte crying at the table. Apparently, she had discovered his secret drawer and read his diary, where he honestly expressed his disgust towards her and his affection for Lo. Charlotte calls him a criminal monster, declares she's leaving, and vows to keep Lo away from him. Humbert suggests they both need a drink and goes to prepare it for them. Just then the telephone rang and someone told him that Charlotte is dead. He finds it ridiculous, as just now he was talking to her, but when he didn't find her at the house, he was shocked. While investigating, Humbert notices the front door wide open. He goes outside and discovers Charlotte's body in the middle of the street. She ran in front of a car while trying to send letters warning others about Humbert's evil actions against children. He burned those letters and drove to pick up Lo from camp. In the car, Lo asks about Charlotte, and Humbert lies, saying she's in the hospital with an abdominal problem. Lo tells him that she doesn't miss him and feels he doesn't care about her because he hasn't kissed her yet. They park by the side of the road, and Lo immediately climbs onto Humbert's lap for a kiss. They stopped by a nearby hotel. While Humbert is talking to the front desk, Lo plays with a dog owned by a mysterious person. The owner comments that his dog usually doesn't like many people, but surprisingly likes Lo, whom he describes as sweet. Later, as Lo gets ready for bed, Humbert goes out and meets the man Lo was talking to earlier. The man asks about Lo's mother, and Humbert lies, saying she's gone. The man knows he's not telling the truth. He invites them for lunch the next day, but Humbert declines, saying they'll be leaving soon. He finds it very strange and leaves. The next morning, while they were in the car, Lo asked him to stop at a gas station. She then starts teasing him. At the gas station, she asks for the hospital's number so that she can talk to her mother, but he informs her that she is no more. This news breaks her and she cries throughout the night. After some time, they decided to explore America. As they travel around the United States, Lo becomes visibly bored of Humbert. Eventually, they settle at Beardsley College, where Humbert starts teaching. They kept on having intimate relations behind everyone's back. At Beardsley College, he convinces Lo to attend Beardsley Prep School, which is quite liberal. One day, Lo tells Humbert that she wants to join a school play. However, Humbert refuses her request. In an attempt to get her way, Lo tries to seduce him, demanding an increase in her allowance and permission to join the play, claiming she deserves things just like he wants things from her. When Humbert visits Lo's practice for the play, he sees Claire Quilty, the man they encountered at the hotel during their travels. Claire is a playwright and is in charge of the current play. As time passes, their relationship becomes strained, and Humbert starts buying her favors, thinking she's saving money to escape from him. Humbert discovers that Lo has been skipping her piano lessons, and when he questions her, she admits she's been practicing the play with her friend Mona in the park. They argue, and Humbert accuses Lo of trying to run away. She screams at him and says anyone would want to run away from him. He demands she return the money he gave her, but she insists she earned it, and he slaps her. His action took aback Humbert. Lo starts yelling at him to murder her like her mother. She starts crying and yelling at him, and just when she saw the opportunity, she runs away screaming murderer. Humbert ran to follow her, but she took a bicycle and left. Humbert discovers Lo in a pharmacy, and she tries to hide that she was calling someone. She shares that she has made a decision and wants to leave Beardsley. Lo wants to go on another trip, but this time, she wants to choose the destination, to which Humbert agrees. Lo decides they need to reach Wace in a week. When Humbert asks why, she explains they must see the ceremonial dances at the Maggot Caves. Later, they have plans to climb the Red Rock in Elphinstone 2 weeks and 4 days later. Lo showed Humbert the map and was very excited. While on the road, Humbert notices they are being followed and suspects a detective is tailing them. He becomes paranoid and distracted while driving. One day, they get a flat tire, and as Humbert goes to fix it, the car tailing them stops nearby. He decided to confront the driver and walk towards the car. Just then, Lo has taken control of their car and is driving away. He catches up and instructs her to use the handbrake to stop the car. Later, Humbert asks for the pad where Lo wrote the car's license plate number. He realizes that it has been tampered with. He slaps Lo but later apologizes for his actions. They reach Crawford's Lake Point cottages and stay the night. Humbert goes out to the barbershop and learns from the radio that Quilty is in Wace. When he returns to their room, he finds Lo looking messy and lying about where she's been. He gets angry and takes advantage of her while questioning her about who she's been with. Lo falls sick, so Humbert takes her to the hospital, where she stays overnight. The next day, he calls to check on her and finds out she has been taken by her uncle Gustave, who is actually Quilty. Humbert rushes to the hospital but is too late, and Quilty and Lo are gone. He searched for them, but he had no luck. 3 years later, Humbert receives a letter from Lo, who is now married and expecting a baby. She asks for his help and money to support her family, explaining the hardships she has faced. Humbert decides to visit her and finds a grown-up version of Lo. She welcomes him warmly and reveals that Quilty was the man who took her away. Lo shares that she had feelings for only Quilty. Humbert inquired what about him. Instead of answering, she leaves for the kitchen and he follows, asking her to come with him. He gave Lo $4,000 without any conditions, but still Lo refuses to go with him. While he was leaving, he inquired one last time if she could ever forget what he did to her, to which Lo didn't reply and asked her dog to say him goodbye. He sat in his car and Lo started waving at him. For a moment, he remembers young Lo waving at her. Later, he visits Quilty's mansion. Quilty came out of the shower casually and ignored Humbert. Humbert had a gun in his hand and introduced him as the father of Lo. But Quilty was still unbothered by his presence. This made Humbert angry, and he shot a bullet near him, which freaked out Quilty. He ran towards the living room and started playing the piano. But Humbert followed him and shot him. Quilty then ran again, and Humbert kept on shooting him, landing the final shot in his bedroom. He then leaves in his car with blood on his hands and a hairpin with a gun on the passenger seat, as shown in the beginning of the movie. While he was driving, police were already there to catch him. He slowly drove the car off-road and got out. He looked a little down and heard the children's melodies playing, and he missed the voice of Lolita from the chorus. Humbert died in prison of a coronary thrombosis on November 16, 1950, whereas Lolita died during childbirth on Christmas Day in 1950. The movie ends here.